You hear a lot of ideas, you have a lot of ideas floating in your head. We have to take idea to action, or it's just talk. And one of the ways to do that is to kind of think like a time machine, if you will. Visualize your body standing where you are. You're a time machine. If you think about it as a time machine, you can look behind you. That represents past tense. You look in front of you. That represents the future. So if you're in a time machine right now, let's call that your automobile of life. Just take your right hand, if you would, and kind of reach up and in front of you. Now, if you're in a vehicle back home, what might you be able to grab for right now? Get a good grip on that rearview mirror. And on 3, I want you to yank it off that window. 1, 2, 3. All right, now roll down the window and throw it out. It's always fun to see who's rich and who's poor. Some of you start cranking, that's scary. Boom. All right, grab a seat. Grab a seat. Welcome. You've thrown out the mirror from the past tense. If we want to be successful, it's not about what's in the past. You've got to let go. It's about what's in the future. My job today is to share some ideas with you. There are some returning veterans in the house. Nice to see familiar faces, some friends, some colleagues, and even some of my team. It makes me look good every day of the week. For the new people in the room, welcome. If you think about the ideas you're going to hear this week, what you have heard this week, some of these ideas are great ideas, and that's all they are unless you take action. What I want to do in my time together is to give you some strategies. That's ideas. But I want to move them to tactical. How do we make them work to move forward? So as you build your companies, some of you, your businesses are you and a napkin. You know who you are. So you're actually in a great position because you can do anything. There's no rules right now. Others of you might have a couple of people that are part of your business, and there's some in here that have enormous business machines. So I want to give you what I have noticed in the past 15 years are the trends and commonalities of successful businesses. And what are the trends and commonalities that have got great businesses in deep trouble? So there are 6 quick ideas I want to give to you, and you have a handout so you can track them and follow along. But here's the starting point. I've noticed. You know, if you were to go home right now in your head and look at all of the business books you have on your shelves, business, management, leadership, team building, inspiration, whatever the categories might be, put them in a big stack, pour yourself a nice big favorite drink, and glance at the table of contents. Here's one of the patterns I've noticed. Most all of the books jump right into how-tos or someone's interpretation of how-to. But what almost every book doesn't talk about is what you must have in order for those how-tos to work. If you were to take a stack of autobiographies or biographies, and better to take autobiographies, of people that are alive, that's an even bigger challenge, because if they're dead, who cares? You can't prove anything. I like looking at people that are alive. That way, if you read something about them, you can watch them tomorrow and see if they really do it. But if you look at books about successful people, what you'll start to realize over and over again in those books is what most of the business books miss. And that is the first trait I've recognized in every successful business and successful leader is that they get the one thing that most business books fail to talk about. Some of my colleagues before me and after me this week, they'll talk about it as well. So let me pose it as a question. If you think about psychology as if it were the art and science of looking in a mirror, a person. And sociology would be the art and science of looking at groups of people. We'll do a little bit of both today. But if you think about psychology, whether you go back 100-ish years ago to Harvard University, Professor William James, kind of known as the father of modern American psychology, or you jumped into the 40s and 50s and read a little bit about B.F. Skinner, maybe that name's more widely familiar, because all that really Skinner tried to do was to prove James wrong. And every time he did studies, he said, crap, it's still true. Or you could jump forward to the 80s, 90s, and go to New York City. Dr. Albert Ellis, the last of the big 3 psychological giants, one of my colleagues from New York City here, welcome. He tried to see, was Skinner right, wrong? Was James right, wrong? And every time he did research, he found, yep, still true. 100 years worth of research. What makes us different as human beings? Well, what makes us similar?